Well, hello stream. How we doing today? Today we work on an audiobook. That's what we do. Oh my gosh. We hit 500 followers. Look at that. We'll give ourselves a little bit of time for people to show up, and then we'll do a giveaway. But that's exciting.
Chapter 5.
Woo!
Whiz, bang!
Thanks for the host, Erica. Appreciate that very much.
5. Chapter 5. Why did Riri...
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Chapter 5. Chapter 5.
No, working on an audiobook today.
Chapter 5. Why did Riri hate her so? Said Sun. They knew each other when they were girls, as you will have guessed, said Albern. Their feud began then, and it worsened the older they grew. That is not always how it goes, of course. Many times we make enemies in our youth, only to reunite with them later and laugh at old, petty grievances. But that usually requires our paths to draw apart for a time, only to reunite when years of wisdom allow us to see our early days with a more honest eye. Kaita and Riri never had that chance. They were never apart for long, and their conflict worsened each time they clashed.
Hey, what's up, Aftershock?
Kaita and Riri never had that chance. They were never apart for long, and their conflict worsened each time they clashed. They were not sisters, were they? Said Sun. I have no siblings, but I have known others who do. They fight more than it seems possible two people can fight. Albern chuckled at that. I have seen the same, but no, they were not. They journeyed now through green lowlands, across fields that stretched for leagues to the west and east. In the west they met suddenly a great spur rising up out of the land. Sun recognized it from the story Albern had already told her of Lan Shui. To the east, the land climbed into the foothills of the Great Rock Mountains, which stood imposing above them, reaching for the sun, which was still climbing into the sky. The cool air had warmed now, and Sun had cast off her cloak and opened the ties of her outer skins as she walked, trying to keep from overheating. A raven soared above them. Sun glanced at it and was unpleasantly reminded of Kaita and the way she had stalked Mag and Albern from the air for so long. She shuddered and returned her attention to the road. It is all so different, murmured Albern. When Sun looked up at him curiously, he waved his arm at their surroundings. The landscape, I mean. When was the last time you were here? Longer than a while, less than an age, he said, chuckling. Some time after the Necromancer's War, but not long after. Leaving for such a length of time makes all the changes seem far more stark. When you remain in a place, or when you see something every day of your life, you can miss the subtler changes as they happen. Sun peered up at him, for his face was still somewhat shadowed by his hood. He had not thrown it back, despite the sun. You mean as someone grows older? Certainly, but it is true for more than just people. Alburn rolled his shoulders. Sun was beginning to recognize that as a sign that he was about to tell another, smaller story as part of the whole. I am of the family Telfer, as you know, and my kin dwell in the northeastern mountains of Calenton, in a land called Tokana. That is near the northern end of the Great Rocks, whereas we are now close to their southern tip. Our main stronghold is nestled in the mountains, on a ridge overlooking a small dale. That dale was my favorite place when I was a child. The way the land seemed to spill down into it, tumbling from the heights to level out and grow smooth far below our home. The city surrounding our keep was built into the folds of the land. In the morning, the clouds would surround us like a blanket, and as the day wore on, the sun would cast that blanket away from us, welcoming us to its warmth. The stars. I have never seen so many, never seen them so clearly. It was like the sky viewed from the ocean on a clear night, but more so. Of course, I know now that I was viewing things through the eyes of childhood, and circumstances are rarely as good or as bad as we think they are when we are young. But still, it was a beautiful place. I would often go walking and riding, for I was always a lover of the wilderness. When I was very young, my middle sister, Dietra, would accompany me, along with a few attendants. When I was older, I ventured alone. In the center of the dale was a tall kauri tree. Every time I would stop and spend a little while observing it. I told myself stories about it. I imagined climbing it one day, though I never did. The idea of it was something beautiful, and I feared that if I ever went to it in fact, if I put my hands on it, I would find that it was real and inevitably disappointing. The tree never changed. It was always there, always watching over the valley. Kauris are evergreen, so it did not even lose its leaves in the winter. I imagine it was growing, but that was impossible to notice from so far away. And because of the tree, I thought that the land, too, was unchanging. To my mind, the city of Kahonga was much the same every time I went out on one of my adventures, and the wilderness beyond was always a joy to ride through. I've told you that Mag's happiest days were in Northwood with Sten. Mine were in those mountains, before I grew older and realized something was wrong in my life. That changed when, one day, someone cut down the kauri tree. Sun frowned at him. What? Who? Some logger, I imagine, said Alburn. I never found out, but the next time I went riding, something felt wrong. It was like going on a journey and realizing after a week of travel that you have forgotten your cloak, though you would have sworn it was on your shoulders. Or, I suppose, he raised the stump of his right arm. It is like suddenly missing a limb. It took me some time to realize that the tree had been cut down, and it shook me. It shook me far more than it ought to have. But then, once I had recovered from that shock, I began to look around, and I realized that things were even worse. The dale no longer looked as it once had. The town had spread. It was a city now. A pall of smoke hung in the air, the smoke of many cooking fires and smiths' forges. I realized suddenly that the once brilliant stars above me had grown dim and red. It had happened over time so that I hardly noticed. And now that I studied it more closely, I realized that many I realized that many trees had been felled in the dale, not just the tall kauri. Now there were more rooftops than trees in the valley. The tall cowrie was only the latest victim. I had missed all the others because it had held all of my focus. I ran to my mother, the rangatira, and demanded to know what had happened to the cowrie. She dismissed my concerns with a snort, saying that it had had to come down for the good of the people in the dale. I myself thought that the dale had been better before everyone had torn it down to the turf. Mayhap the cowrie had only been a pretty thing for me to look at, as my mother tried to tell me, but I did not think so at the time. That was in my 14th year. Until then, I had been mostly happy with my life. But seeing the great changes that continued to spread around me, it made me realize that I, too, had changed. I was never quite as satisfied again. I left before seeing my 20th year. "You did?" said Son, jerked suddenly out of the spell of the story. "Why, I have only seen 19 years. You left at the same age as I did." Alburn smiled down at her. "Correct. Do you not think that is odd? Do you understand a little better why, when I first heard about a daughter of the family Valgoon sneaking away from her family, I thought I might understand why?" Son grew somber. "Mayhap, but your family does not sound quite so bad as mine." She expected him to refute her, but he only pursed his lips. "Mayhap. I suppose we shall both have to see. For now, let us return to Opara, where Mag and Dryleaf and I had taken our lodgings." We woke in the morning after a restful night, more restful than any we had had since we set out from Lan Shui. In truth, we slept overlong, waking a good few hours past dawn. The smell of food drifting up from the kitchen filled my nostrils as I stretched upon the bed, which I had taken after Mag had replaced me on watch. She sat with her back against the room's door, dozing, but her eyes snapped open as she heard me groan. "Good morn," she Good. Good morn. "Good morn," she said. "I think I shall fetch us some breakfast." "Make sure to bring some to Oku as well," I said. "He is likely angry with us for spending the night inside and apart from him, after so much time of being able to share our tents." "Your tent, mayhap," said Mag, sniffing. "I never allowed him into mine." "That is patently untrue," I said. "But in any case, I would much appreciate it if you got us some food." She nodded and went to do it. I had Dryleaf up by the time she returned, and we ate in silence, enjoying our sliced sweet potato and sour bread. "Sky," I breathed once I had finished eating. "That was good." "A taste of home for you, I imagine," said Dryleaf. "Time for business, then," said Mag, before I could answer Dryleaf and tell him that I barely remembered the dish, for I had spent longer outside of Calenton than within it. "We must determine how to hunt down the shades and, hopefully, Kaita." "I'm afraid I do not know where to start," I said. "This place is almost as strange to me as if I had never been here before." Mag grinned. "There is someone we can call on." I frowned at her. "Who?" "Victon." My eyes shot wide. "Victon? Victon is here?" "He is," said Mag. "We sent each other letters on occasion. After he retired from the life of a sellsword, he moved here to Opara and began a winery." Dryleaf's brow shot for the ceiling, and he licked his lips. Did he? It has been some time since I've been able to enjoy a good rare vintage. Victon, I said, shaking my head. I can scarcely believe it. I hope he will be happy to see us, said Mag, and that he will be able to aid us. Laughing, I said, Happy? I have never known Victon to be anything but a happy man. Let us ask the innkeeper if he knows where the vineyard is, and then let us report to our old captain. Our old captain.
Hey, what's up, Ari? Oh, that's awesome. I hope you're enjoying it. Jagtris! Oh my god, long time no see. How's it going? Ha ha ha. Stoneheart, output, chapter 5. Okay. Eee. Shit. The editing is going well. QCing this audiobook, getting ready to send it out the door, and I have another audiobook in the queue right after this, which is the new Cloak of Red audiobook. So that's exciting. What's up, Mez? Working and lurking sounds good. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Ari. I think we've got enough people. Yes, do be safe. Very much so. I think we got enough people to do a giveaway, which is exciting. Bum. Giveaways. How do we change this again? Media share, redemption, music, blah, 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 blah. Settings. We're giving away a hardcover copy of Nightblade Epic Vol 1, so let's do Dagger. Alright. We are starting a giveaway now. I think it's 10 minutes long. Yes, for the next 10 minutes, enter Dagger in chat, and after I finish the next chapter, we will pick our winner. And as per usual, if you're in the US, that will be a signed copy.
Chapter 6. And then I can't remember if I did chapter 5, so I'm just going to do it again here just in case. Stoneheart, chapter 5. You may remember.
I think I did do it, so we're just going to double check that.
Stoneheart, chapter 5.
I did do it. Okay, good. There we go. Those notes you leave for your editor. Hey, can you go back and change a thing because I think I messed up? Oh, I didn't mess up? Okay, cool. That's cool too. Why isn't it registering you, Aftershock? Oh, are you... You have to be a follower. Command. But you should be following, if I remember correctly. Have I done this wrong? Oh, did it say subs? Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, Ari, you're going to have to do it again one more time. Confirm. Okay. It's supposed to be followers. That's my B. Edit. Ah! Everyone. My bad. Sorry about that, everyone. Here we go. We're doing this again. All right. Try it again. Okay. Hey, there we go. We're working. It's working.
Chapter 6. You may remember my mentioning Victon earlier. When I joined the Upangan Blades, he was my first sergeant. We fought together for a good long while, and unlike many of my other superiors,
All right.
We fought together for a good long while, and unlike many of my other superiors, he and Mag and I were always fast friends, partially because of something that had happened when I had only been with the company for a few months. He and I were scouting through the jungle towards an enemy camp when a bear plunged out of the underbrush and attacked us. I was a few paces ahead of Victon, but my focus was on the tracks we were following, and so Victon noticed the bear first. He leaped forwards to shove me out of the way of its charge. It struck him instead, sending him careening into a tree. He sagged to the ground, groaning. I gave a shout and drew an arrow from my quiver. The bear turned on me at once. It came roaring towards me with a fury that told me it must have cubs nearby. Nothing else could have provoked it into such an unreasoning rage. As it charged, I managed to loose a single arrow, but panic sent my shot wide, and the arrow only entangled in the fur of the bear's shoulder. It struck out, and I barely threw myself out of the way in time. Its paw snapped my bow in two. I ducked behind a tree as it swiped again. Its claws ripped through the tree, nearly toppling it.
Ari, that's completely understandable. Every time Megan and I kiss each other these days, we're like, social distancing.
Even as I prepared to run for my life, Victon came charging with a cry. He went for a stab, but the bear rounded and struck him a heavy backhanded blow. He crashed to the ground. The bear reared, ready to fall upon him and crush him with its massive bulk. I had been about to flee, but seeing Victon helpless gave me just enough courage to rejoin the fight. I drew my short sword and charged. I stabbed the beast in the side, but fear had weakened.
Ooh, we got some mouth clicks in here, boy. Those little jagged fuckers.
I stabbed the beast in...
That's better.
I stabbed the beast in the side, but fear had weakened my sword arm. A few fingers' worth of steel pierced the bear's flank, but that was all. Still, it turned and thundered in rage at me, forgetting Victon. I barely managed to duck another swing. The creature's speed and ferocity were incredible.
There you go, Jagtress.
I had only one thought. I had to draw it away from Victon. I had to draw it away from Victon. There was no use in both of us dying out here in this sky-forsaken wilderness. I ran off into the jungle, hoping to lose it, but the bear was never more than a few paces behind me. My breath grew short. I could practically smell the thing, and I thought I was doomed. But then came Mag. She had been assigned to the same squadron as me, and she and a few of our fellows had remained behind to wait for Victon and me to return. She heard the sound of the bear's attack from far away through the jungle and came running as fast as she could. Even as I was searching for some place I could climb or some hole I could hide where the bear would not be able to follow, I heard the tone of its roaring change behind me. I turned and found Mag had engaged with the beast. This was long before she had acquired her spear in Dull Moon, so she had a simple in me to return. She heard the sound of the bear's attack from far away through the jungle and came running as fast as she could. Even as I was searching for some place I could climb or some hole I could hide where the bear would not be able to follow, I heard the tone of its roaring change behind me. I turned and found Mag had engaged with the beast. This was long before she had acquired her spear in Dull Moon, so she had a simple broadsword, but she had not even bothered to draw it before flinging herself at the beast. It growled and swiped at her, but Mag evaded the blow with such ease that she looked lazy doing it. Then her boot flew up and struck the bear hard in its chin. I heard a crunch, and its head snapped back. It gave a confused grunt. Before it could raise another paw to strike, Mag leaped forwards and...
That's because that's Albern's voice. Albern's narrating. Past tense.
Before it could raise another paw to strike, Mag leaped forwards and jabbed at its eyes with fingers she had pressed together like daggers. I heard a wet thunk as she pierced one of the bear's eyes, and it gave a terrified scream of pain and fury. It struck, but again Mag avoided the blow. When she came back up, her sword was in her hand. It sank into the soft flesh underneath the bear's foreleg, piercing deep into its rib cage. Its cry came out wet and wheezing. The bear turned and fled. It limped on 3 legs to favor the 4th that Mag had maimed. She turned to me, the battle trance like a mask over her expression. It shook me then, as it always did.
Well, that was loud. Thanks for the follow, Senpappy Gaming. Oh, I need to figure out a way to turn down my own speakers. That was very, very loud. Woof. Or to turn down alerts somehow. Oh, boy.
As it always did. Are you all right? Victon, I gasped. It is heading for Victon. She seized my arm and pulled me up, and together we pelted after the beast. Its trail through the jungle was plain to see, and then, half a span before we reached the place I had left Victon, it turned right and vanished into the underbrush. I stopped at the spot, and Mag ran a few more paces before she stopped and looked back at me. What is it? She's... and looked back at me. At me. What is it? She said. It turned, headed off that way. I pointed where the trail had gone. She saw the trail after I pointed it out and nodded. I'm going after it. We have to make sure it does not wander into our enemy's camp and alert them. See to Victon.
Thanks for the host, Dread. Appreciate that. You guys are just trying to throw alerts at me to freak me out, aren't you?
See to Victon. Without waiting for my answer, she bolted off between the trees. I carried on towards the clearing where we had been attacked. There I found Victon. He had crawled to a nearby tree and sat with his back against it, panting and grimacing, holding his side. Blood seeped out from between his fingers. Victon, I cried, are you all right? I ran up to him, and he smiled up at me, his white teeth shining against his dark skin. Fine, he said, chuckling. Its claws got me, but not very badly. He lifted his hand, and I could see it was true. There was a gash, but nothing life-threatening unless it became infected. It needs cleaning, I said, reaching for a flask of ale at my side. I wish I had something stronger, but this will sting badly enough to do the job. How comforting. Wait. Victon seized the flask and took a deep pull, wincing at its poor taste. He handed it back to me. All right. I poured it on the wound. Victon growled out his pain and then laid his hand back on the wound when I was done, putting pressure on it with the edge of his cloak. There now, I said. The healers back at camp can tend to it further. Mag, he said, went after the bear. She did not want it to wander towards our enemies, lest they discover other soldiers are here in the jungle. Smart of her, said Victon. Yes, it annoys me, I said lightly. No one should be that good a fighter and have a mind for strategy. Victon chuckled, and just then Mag returned to the clearing. The battle trance was gone from her, and there was a deep frown on her face. You finished it? I asked her. No, she said. It vanished. You lost the trail? It was not exactly trying to be stealthy after the trouncing you gave it. For which I thank you, by the way.
Thanks for the host, Harry. Jesus Christ. I really gotta figure out how to turn down that fucking sound.
Said Victon. Yes, I said. It is not everyone who can defeat a full-grown bear with only her hands. Victon stared at me incredulously. 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 Her hands? At first, I said, smiling. I think she wanted a challenge before she deigned to draw her sword. Oh, be silent, both of you, said Mag. And I did not lose the trail. The bear vanished. I rolled my eyes and grinned at Victon. That bolsters my confidence, at least. She may be better with a sword than anyone I have ever seen, but she is as useless in this jungle as you are, sir. Victon burst out laughing, though it looked like it hurt him. You two have saved my life, and that is not something easily forgotten. Thank you. Now, help me up. We stooped to lift him, and I walked him off through the jungle with his arm around my shoulder. Mag took his other arm, bloody sword still bare in her hand. You were too kind, by the way, sir, I said. I did not save your life. That honor was Mag's. Victon grinned again. You drew it off, and you tried to fight it at least. We cannot all be the uncut lady. Mag grimaced. I had only recently coined that name for her. Victon and I laughed again. Our true friendship began in that moment, and it would last for the rest of our lives. And it is rather important to me that you know this story, for reasons that shall become plain.
Oh, thanks, Wordwin. I'll look into it.
That shall become plain. Our innkeeper did indeed know where the vineyards could be found, and he seemed somewhat jealous when we said we and Victon were old friends. It seemed that Victon was rather well known in the area, and his wine much sought after. With Dryleaf in tow, we rode for the place with light hearts, for we were eager to see our friend again after so long. We cast our hoods up and moved quickly, doing our best to pass unnoticed, just in case the weremage was in the city and happened upon us by chance. We still thought we had the element of surprise. Of course, you know that all our precautions were in vain, but we did not. We spotted Victon's place almost from the moment we passed through the city's eastern gate. He had a very large estate, hectares of vines stretching across the feet of Tahumonga, which loomed high above. There was a west wind that day, and so the air was clear, the mountain's lazy smoke blowing away from us. Once we were a good distance out of town, Mag threw back her hood. If the weremage is watching us from the sky, that is because she already knows we are here, she proclaimed, and it is far too wonderful a day to stay sweating under that hood any longer. I smiled at her. We let the horses proceed at their own slow pace, with full hoof their own slow pace. With Fool Hoof occasionally trying to wander off the road towards a particularly delicious-looking patch of grass. Oku padded happily beside us. A light wooden fence surrounded Victon's land. It would have been proof against nothing more determined than wandering deer, and the gate at the front stood open. We walked up between the rows of vines, seeing no one nearby. Only when we drew closer to the house at the end of the path did we finally see 6 figures, bent and plucking the last of the year's grapes. So deep were they in concentration that we drew very close indeed before one of them noticed us. Her plump face, brown skin further darkened by the sun, crinkled as she squinted at us. "Visitors!" she said, loud enough for us to hear. 2 of the figures, the ones close here. 2 of the figures, the ones closest to the path, raised their heads. One of them was a young man, the other a woman, and from their jet-black skin and features I knew them for Victon's kin. When they saw us, they stepped away from their vines and came walking up. The rest of the workers gave us only a cursory glance before returning to their jobs. "Good day," said the woman as she approached. "I regret to inform you that we have no stock available for sale. Last year's wine is not yet ready, and it is all reserved in any case." "That is ill news," said Mag. "Or it would be if we were here looking for wine. We have come to see Victon. He is an old friend, even if he is now of such stature that others must greet us when we visit. Am I to guess that you are his children?" They looked uncertainly at each other. "We are," said the boy. "How do you know our father?" "From the days of our youth," I said. "Or hers and mine, at least, for Victon is older than either of us. We were sellswords together in the days when he fought for the Upangan blades." A flash of recognition shot across both their faces. They looked up at the two of us with renewed interest, and the girl's eyes shone. She pointed to Mag. Are you the uncut lady?" she asked. Mag scowled. I strangled a bark of laughter before it could break free. "I am Mag, if that is what you mean." "Sky above," said the boy. He came to me, extending a hand. "Well met, friends. And what is your name?" I am afraid I looked quite thunderstruck. It was Mag's turn to hide her laughter. "You mean Victon never told you about me?" They both looked embarrassed, and the boy slowly drew back his hand. He might have," he said, making it sound like a question. "Only not well enough that we would know you by sight." "I am Alburn," I said. They both blinked. "Alburn of the family Telfer?" I said, struggling mightily to hide a note of desperation. At last the girl's face lit, and she smiled.
Oh, of course. The uncut lady's follower.
She turned to her brother.
You remember, he was the one who ran away from the bear.
"What?" I rather shrieked. The boy, who appeared not to have heard me, burst out into laughter at the girl's words.
Oh, him! Sky saved me. Father always makes me laugh when he tells those sorts of stories.
He extended his hand again.
Well met, Albert.
Alburn gets roasted a lot in these books, and I really love it. I really love setting up Alburn to get roasted.
Well met, Albert. I am Nuru, of the family Victon, and this is my sister, Zuri.
"Well met," said Mag, recognizing that I was quite incapable of speech for the moment, though I did take Nuru's hand and shake it.
"You know the two of us already, and our elderly companion is called Dryleaf." "And are you an old friend as well?"
said Zuri.
"I do not recall Father mentioning you in his stories."
"I am sorry to say I am not," said Dryleaf, who was still wiping away tears of laughter at my reaction.
"Though from everything I have heard, as well as your excellent—"
"Away tears of laughter at my reaction," said Dryleaf, who was still wiping away tears of laughter at my reaction.
"Though from every—" "Though from everything I have heard, as well as your excellent manners, I think I will enjoy meeting your father to a rare extent."
"Come with us," said Nuru, gently taking the bridle of Mag's horse, Mist.
"Father will be overjoyed to see you."
"It will be our pleasure," I managed to growl. Zuri approached Foolhoof, and the dark-taken gelding actually nuzzled into her outstretched hand. "Oh, have you decided to forsake me too?" I asked him. Zuri looked up at me, aghast.
"What?"
"The horse," I said, dismounting and letting her take the reins. "Never mind. Thank you."
Oh, Alburn. All right. Chapter 6 is done. And I believe that means that it is time for a giveaway. All right, a 3 and a 2 and a 1 and a pick the winner. Mezzo9, congratulations, you've won. You're going to get a hardcover copy of the Nightblade Epic Volume 1. Go ahead, if you don't mind, and shoot me a direct message on here on the Twitch. I'll reach out to you actually first. And if you shoot me a shipping address, I will get it sent off to you as quickly as possible. Okay. Export chapter 6. Upload that shit and good. On with chapter 7. Try mod view. What is this mod view? Go to mod view. Okay. How does this work? Cool. Why can I not have chat on the right side of the screen? I guess I can have it on the left, and that kind of works. That's totally fine, Mezzo9. Just wanted to make sure that you didn't miss your win. Oh, right here. We got to set up our shizzle. Word win. True. All right, I gotta pee real quick. I will BRB. I'm working on it, Erica. Give me a break.
Chapter 7. The house was large, but not opulently so. The walls were light brown stone, but the roofs were curved red tile, which I had not often seen outside of Dorsey. It made for a wonderfully attractive combination, especially with the great wooden doors through which Victon's children led us inside the house. Victon was napping, and so we met his wife, Nuri, first. She was positively radiant, with a round waist and eyes that danced, her skin even darker than her children's. She was delighted when her children introduced us, and she went to fetch Victon as soon as we had finished our greetings. When he emerged, still blinking bleary eyes from sleep and leaning heavily on his crutch, his face beamed with a smile that burst into laughter as he saw us. "Sky save me if I expected this today," he said, coming forwards and seizing us in a hug. "What are the two of you doing here? I thought you were both living in Selvin." That cast a shadow over our mood, and he saw it. His own smile faded a little as he watched ours die. "We were," said Mag. "Much has changed." He looked us both over, taking note of Dryleaf. I suspected he was looking for Stan. They had never met, but of course Mag... Stan. They had looking for Stan. They had never... For Stan. They had never met, but of course Mag would have mentioned him in her letters. "I can see that," said Victon at last. His smile returned now, still happy but somewhat more weary. "Well, come in. We are about to eat. I shall fill you with food and flood you with wine, and we shall talk of what we must, and what we can, and what we wish." Rarely have I enjoyed a meal so much. The courses were a mixture of Calentin food and dishes from Victon's homeland of Feldemar. First we ate sour flatbread and sweet potatoes, but dipped in a delicious sauce made from beef grease and filled with spices. Then the beef itself came, smoked with manuka wood and cooked with whitefish, soft and tender and soaking in still more sauce. With it came plates of green shell oysters dipped in pepper and garlic. I remember every bite of that meal to this day. I can see Oku, who waited patiently at the side of the room until I offered him a morsel of food. He trotted forwards to eat it gently from my fingers. Mag fed him as well, but only when she thought I was not looking, which of course I was.
Ooh, she thick.
Victon called Oku to him at one point, and the hound came obediently.
A finer wolfhound I have never seen,
said Victon, holding Oku's face between his weathered hands.
Who has ever seen such a well-mannered boy? Not I. No, not I.
Oku nuzzled his hands and licked his face, and Victon laughed and ordered the kitchen to give him whatever bones they might have. Oku lay happily in the corner for the rest of the meal. I remember, too, the wine, which was not only plentiful, but among the best I have ever tasted. It was just sweet enough for you to drink it in great swallows, and more than heady enough to send us into peals of laughter at even the slightest joke. It was dark and smoky, with the faintest hints of charcoal that mingled perfectly with the well-smoked meats we ate. I had a few glasses, and I am positive Mag had more than a bottle. Wine and ale had never had much effect on her. The food I remember. The conversation, however, comes to me now in bits and snatches. We told Victon of Northwood and what had happened to Sten. Then we told him of our journey through the Great Rocks, of the satyrs we found there, and of all that happened in Lan Shui. When we told them of the vampires, Victon's face paled, and his wife reached over to clutch her son's arm. We finished our stories around the same time that the whole table finished their meal, and we all leaned back in our chairs, groaning pleasantly at the tight feeling in our guts. I looked to Victon. I cannot remember the last time I enjoyed myself so thoroughly, old friend. Barely half the day has passed, and yet I wish I could lie down.
But you can,
laughed Victon.
I have a room for just such a purpose. Walk with me a moment, and I will show you my land, and then we can rest.
He walked us out of the back of the house and pointed at the different plots, telling us the different sort of grapes he had, which I am sure are important to a vintner, but which I cannot remember at all. In the middle of the fields were built a series of houses, each seeming just as grand as Victon's own. When we asked him who lived there, he smiled.
Why, those who work in the fields with us, of course. They must be grateful to you for building them such fine homes,
said Mag. Victon cocked his head at her with a wry look.
Grateful to me? They built those homes on their own. I only helped a little.
Mag seemed somewhat at a loss.
Forgive my mistake. I thought the field hands were your servants.
Victon laughed at that, slapping one hand against his hip and the other against his crutch.
Servants? Giving and taking orders? Sky above, Mag, have we not had enough of that in our lives? We make the wine together. We sell the wine together. We live together. Some even bed together when they think their parents are not looking. Is that not right, Nuru?
He took his son's arm and gave it a little shake.
Father, please, said Nuru, blood rushing into his cheeks. The only trouble we have tending our fields, Victon went on, is when he and one of the Touré boys goes suddenly missing. But we always find them before too long, and their cheeks are a little rosier when we do. Father! cried Nuru, aghast.
Victon laughed harder and led us all back into the house. He brought us to a room full of couches, each of which was laid with many tasseled pillows, and we lay down as we continued to talk. I learned that Nuru was an Ander man, like me. He had come to realize he was Ander much younger than I had. I was a bit of a special case, for it usually happens in childhood. The two of us spent a good deal of time speaking privately of our wendings and all the other little details that only another Ander person can truly understand. Sometimes Dryleaf would be reminded of one of his stories, and then he would tell it. He was better at it than any of us. We listened attentively whether he spoke or sang, and he made Victon's family weep with the beauty of the songs he gave them, so ancient that I had never heard them before, and rendered in the high speech that had once been common in the courts of the 9 kingdoms. We talked until dinner, and then we talked all throughout that meal, even better than lunch had been, and with still more wine, and then we talked for a good long while afterwards. But sometime in the evening, when the sun had long since set, and the moons were making their intrepid way across the sky, we came to business. Victon's children had long since gone to bed, Nuru somewhat sooner than Zuri, for I had spotted another boy lurking outside the room, beckoning to him. It was only the 5 of us now, and Oku in the corner, of course. Mag sat up on her couch. Victon and Nuri rose as well, sensing the mood in the room shift.
Victon,
said Mag,
this day has been the best of long memory. I have not Dryleaf's gift with words, nor even Albern's, and so I cannot tell you what a balm it has been to all of us after the long road that brought us here. But we did not come here only for a visit, however long overdue that might have been.
He sighed, leaning forwards to scratch at the stump of his leg.
Well, of course not. That would have been a long journey to make to see my ugly old face.
Nuri reached over and slapped his arm lightly, and he grinned.
Tell me, my friends, what do you need?
We told you of the weremage, I said. We are hunting her here in Opara. We know she still works with these shades, and we think she came here to join more of them. Victon frowned and scratched at his stubble.
I have heard nothing of any rogue weremage, nor have I heard of these shades. I did not even know about Northwood. There was some rumor of an attack on Selvin, but I took that for Dorsey's usual malcontents. What could bring them here? Opara may stand on the border, but it is hardly a hub of trade. The Shades have long been devising a plan both hidden and evil, said Dryleaf. We should not presume it will be easy to guess at.
Victon reached over to take Nuri's hand.
I suppose I was a fool to think I was done with war forever. You still can be,
said Mag. She left her chair to kneel before him, putting her hands on his leg.
We will take care of this matter. You left your fighting days behind you. So did you,
said Victon. Then he chuckled and pounded on his stump with one hand.
But I suppose there is more than one reason I should not return to the field.
Nuri's brows lifted.
Not to mention the fact that your wife might kill you if you tried. Another fair point, and one I had not considered, said Victon. Yet I may still be of some use. I may not know where to start looking for your renegade wizard, but I know the person who will know where to look. It happens that I am acquainted with Conrus of the family Matara.
I squinted, thinking before I recalled the name. The Rangatira? It might not be wise for us to speak with him.
Oh?
Said Victon, looking vaguely alarmed.
Are you in some trouble with the king's law?
No, I said, but I do not wish my return to Colentin to be widely known, especially among the nobility. I had known Conrus when I was very young. That was a long time ago, and I had had my winding since, but still, I did not like the thought of presenting myself to him.
Yet we could hardly ask for better assistance than we would get from a border lord,
said Mag.
Worry not, Albern. I will do most of the talking. And I will visit him with you, said Victon. He has been expecting a bottle of my special reserve for about a week now. I meant to entice him to visit, but it seems fate has given me a better use for an unpaid favor.
Fate, I laughed, like a fool. If you say so, old friend. I laughed, like a fool.
Little clicky click. Is it you? It is you.
I laughed, like a fool. If you say so, old friend.
But come, said Nuri. It is far too late for you to make your way back to the city tonight. You must stay here with us, and the lot of you can go in the morning.
We made all the right sounds of protestation, but she did not have to work very hard to persuade us. Nuri set us up in some of the finest rooms in their very fine house, and we slept even better than we had at the inn the night before.
Done. Chapter. Yum. Oops. Hold on. All right, I've been going for a little bit now, so I'm going to go grab myself some coffee. Freshen up that coffee. But I will be back in like 5-10 minutes. Catch you all in a moment. Hey, we're back. Hey, Mezzo9, ba 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 ba. Da, 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 da. Oh, so you're not in the U.S. Yeah, so that's totally fine. I sent you a private message on Twitch, which if you're on the Twitch website, it should show up as like on the bottom of your screen. If you're on mobile, I don't actually know how DMs work on mobile. Let me see if I can figure it out on my phone. Hmm. 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 Be silent. Okay. I don't know how whispers work on phone. Anyway, if you're on mobile, um, there's probably a way to access whispers. Anyway, and if you just send me any shipping address, I'll ship to that. And if it's in the U.S., I'll sign it. So if you want to send it to a friend, that's totally fine. Opa. Oh. All right. Let's get crack-a-lackin'.
Chapter 8. Nuri woke Mag Dryleaf and me just after. Chapter 8. Nuri woke Mag Dryleaf and me just after sunrise. We broke our fast with her and Victon. I had a slight headache after all the wine, and Dryleaf looked to be feeling even more delicate, but none of the others seemed any worse for wear. Our meals were done, and we were picking through the remains of the tastiest remaining morsels, when Victon clapped his hands.
"We shall make for the Rangatira first thing," he proclaimed. "I readied one of my finest bottles last night before I went to sleep."
"Will you be accompanying us?" Dryleaf asked Nuri, who was sitting beside him. She arched an eyebrow.
"Do you wish for me to?"
He lifted her hand to kiss it.
"How could I wish for anything but more of your astonishingly beautiful company?"
That made Nuri giggle, even as she shook her head.
"I could ask for no greater compliment, for the blind see the only sort of beauty I have ever cared about. But no, I have many duties here, and I will be little help to you."
When we were ready, we left the house. In the front courtyard we found that the horses had already been brought from the stable, as well as a horse for Victon. Nuru and Zuri were there, and they grinned at us as we emerged into the strengthening daylight.
"A good morn to you all," said Nuru. "Did you sleep well?"
"Wonderfully," said Dryleaf, "and I thank you for your courtesy."
"Mag," said Victon, "will you do me the honor of helping me to the saddle? I learned how to do it myself after the leg, but it is still easier with help, and I could ask for no greater honor than being squired by the uncut lady."
"Squired, is it?" said Mag with a wry smile. "Of course I will." She took his belt and helped heave him up, while I went to aid Dryleaf. Once the two of them were mounted, Mag went to her mare, and I went to Nuru, who was holding Foolhoof's reins. The gelding eyed me suspiciously. "Did he give you any trouble?" I asked Nuru.
"Not a bit," said Nuru. "He was most well behaved."
"Oh, you will obey others, will you?" I said, glaring at Foolhoof even as I rubbed his nose. He snorted on me, and a bit of phlegm splattered on my hand. "Do you see?" I asked Nuru, shaking it away. "This is what I must suffer through." Nuru laughed. Then he held forth a hand. I took his wrist and shook.
"It was an honor to meet you, as well as a pleasure," he said. "I am always pleased to meet another Ander person, and more so when they are a companion of the fabled uncut lady, and a stalwart warrior in their own right," he added quickly, as I gave him a sour look.
"Well spoken, at least at the end," I told him. "Mag has stayed in touch with your father over the years, but I have not. I will do so from now on, and once I have a place where he can send me letters, I would be most pleased to hear from you as well." The boy's face split in a brilliant grin.
"I promise I shall write until you are sick of me."
I laughed and climbed atop my horse. With Victon leading the way, we rode from his home towards the city. The streets were nearly empty, for it was not yet time to go to market, and all the farmers were already out in the fields. Victon took us to our destination with the unswerving air of one who had made this journey many times before. In the center of Opara stood the Rangatira's keep. It was surrounded by a strong stone wall, the backside of which pressed close to the river. Guards patrolled the top of the wall, but they had the sluggish look of soldiers. The sluggish look of soldiers. But they had the sluggish look of soldiers who almost wished for trouble, simply so they would have something to do. The guards opened the gate once Victon explained why he had come. I looked down at Oku. "Kip, boy," I said. Oku looked up at me and whined. "I am sorry, but we will return soon." He trotted off to the side of the gate and lay there, watching as we vanished through it. Attendants took our horses, and Victon led us to the great doors of the keep, which also stood open. A page there raised her chin and looked upon us expectantly.
"I have come to see the Rangatira, bearing a gift I promised him,"
said Victon, raising the bottle of wine.
"And I speak on behalf of my friends here, who have come to beg a boon."
The page looked us over.
Very well. We will take your weapons.
Of course, I said, unbuckling my sword. I left my bow, for it was unstrung, hanging on my saddle. Mag looked somewhat disgruntled, but she handed over her spear and shield. The page handed the weapons to a doorman before leading us into the keep's great hall. There were tapestries on the walls inside, as well as many fine weapons with gold inlay. Pieces for ceremony and show, but they looked fit for battle if need be. Lord Matara clearly had not forgotten his primary purpose as an agent of war. The furniture was solid and sturdy, even when it was beautiful, and the doors looked well kept and easy to bar against intrusion. Through the halls we were led and into a small chamber off to the right. There were many cushioned chairs inside, and the page beckoned us in.
I will deliver your request to Lord Matara,
she said.
He is in council at the moment. You will be summoned when he is ready.
Mag looked exasperated, but I spoke quickly before she could express it. Of course, I said. Thank you for your assistance. She gave a thin-lipped nod and vanished, closing the door behind her. I helped Dryleaf over to one of the chairs and eased him down into it. "Oh, this is a fine seat," he said with a sigh, "though not as fine as your couches, Victon."
"I despise all this waiting."
Mag wore a scowl, and she did not sit, but stood in the center of the room with her arms folded.
"You nobles seem to have perfected the art of making people wait on your beck and call."
"I have not been a noble for some time," I said. She was about to respond when the door to the chamber opened again. It had
What was that, babe? Meg? Did you ask me something? No. Oh, do you want to say hi to stream? What? Do you want to say hi to stream?
Hi, stream. I'm on a work call.
Oh, I didn't realize. I'm sorry. Love you.
It had only been a few moments, and so we all turned to it in surprise. There stood the page again, looking almost as startled as we were.
"The Rangatira is ready to receive you,"
she said, as though she herself could not quite believe it. I barely kept myself from asking, "Already?" But Victon gave us a knowing grin. We helped Dryleaf stand again and followed the page back out into the main hall and up a short flight of stone steps to a large door at the end of the room. Beyond lay the Rangatira's audience chamber. It was the bottom floor of the keep's central tower, and so it was circular, with a wall towards the back that obscured the staircase leading up. In front of that wall stood a small dais, nowhere near so grand as the king's, as I knew from personal experience, but imposing enough. And upon that dais was a chair, where sat the Rangatira. He was a little older than I was, with a thick and braided beard that reached the middle of his chest. Some gray flecked that beard, as well as his temples, just like mine. He had extensive tattoos on his cheeks and chin. Upon his brow was wisdom, and in his eyes burned the fire of courage. His arms were thick with both muscle and fat, and he was clothed in practical garments that were fine enough for his office, but not ostentatious. I felt myself instinctively straightening my posture, standing like a soldier in formation. This was a leader, and no mistake.
"You address Conrus of the family Matara, Rangatira of Opara and of southeastern Calanton,"
said the page. I bowed with a fist to my forehead, and after seeing me, Mag did the same. After I straightened, I went to Dryleaf and carefully guided his hand to his forehead. But before I helped him bow, Lord Matara raised a hand. "That is not necessary," he said. His eyes shifted to the page. "That will be all. Thank you." The page bowed, fist to her forehead, and left. The chamber settled to silence as Lord Matara studied us. At last he beckoned to Victon. "Greetings, old friend," he said. "I see you have finally brought that which you owe me." Victon beamed his most charming smile and approached with the wine. "And it is my pleasure to do so." The Rangatira smiled in return and came down from the dais to accept the bottle. He turned it over in his hands once before placing it on a table near his chair, and then he came over to us, studying us with keen eyes. "You are the ones who have come to ask a boon?" he said. "We are, my lord," said Mag, bowing again. He turned to her, clearly assuming that she was our leader, which suited me just fine. "My duties keep me rather busy, and so I must be brief," he said. "How may I help you?" "We were hoping, Lord, that we could inquire as to whether there has been any unusual activity in Opara of late." Lord Matara frowned. "You shall have to be more specific. Odd goings-on are all I seem to deal with. That is the lot of a Rangatira." Mag gave me a quick glance. How to inquire without tipping our hand? "Rangatira," I said. "Has anyone by chance reported any sightings of a rogue weremage, a Kalentan woman of about my years?" The effect on him was immediate. His dark face grew darker still, and he glanced quickly back and forth between the two of us. "A weremage? I cannot say that I have heard of one, no. But that is a matter for mystics. Are the two of you red cloaks in disguise?" "We are not," said Mag quickly, "but we have a special interest. Have there been any crimes recently, Maya? Something outside of petty theft or a street brawl where the perpetrator has not yet been caught?" "Nothing that has come to me," said Lord Matara, "though I could make some inquiries. But what do the two of you want with a rogue weremage? You would do better to turn this matter over to the mystics and let them track her down, if you can give them a report as to the crimes she has committed." I sighed and reached for my right sleeve, drawing it up to the elbow. There, on the inside of my forearm, was my family's mark. I showed it to Lord Matara. "You will already be familiar with noble marks. The family Telfers is made of 3 arrows pointing down, and behind them lies a bow. It is somewhat reminiscent of the mystic symbol. There mine sat, etched into the skin with black ink. "We have come from the family Telfer," I told Lord Matara. "We have pursued this weremage a long way, and Lord Telfer's grudge against her is quite personal. For that reason, we would rather not involve the mystics. The Red Cloaks would not allow us to pursue our hunt, but would take it upon themselves. We would prefer to handle things quietly."
Sorry for the distraction, Ari.
I could see Victon's surprise. Of course, he knew I was a Telfer, but he also knew that I had not been home in many years, and this story was rather different from what we had told him. But he was wise enough to play along. The Rangatira, for his part, suddenly looked rather stony. Instead of answering, he turned and walked back to his dais, climbed the stairs, and sat down upon his chair. The message was clear. This was no longer a personal matter, a favor bestowed by him upon his friend Victon. This had just become official business. "Why did you not tell me this before?" he said sternly. "As he said, we wished to handle this matter quietly," said Mag. He kept his gaze fixed upon my face. "I do not know that I know you," he said, "though you have the Telfer look." "I do not know that I know you either, Lord," I replied, "though you look like a Matara." The words were made, "though you look like a Matara." Look like a Matara. Look like a like a Matara. You look like like
There you are, fucker.
Though you look like a Matara. The words were made brazen, but they drew a small smile from him. What is your name? Kanahari. His gaze slid past me. And she?
Still on the work call.
Okay.
But I'm on mute.
You're really cute. Oh.
Dawn's taking a shower and Luke's taking a bath.
Probably lock my office door when you leave. The kids have a bad habit of running into my office either naked or in their underwear.
I'm not locking it.
Okay. And no matter how many times I tell them, guys, I stream on the internet, they're like, la la la!
And she? This is Chow, I said, pointing to Mag. She is an old friend of the family and a loyal companion in a fight. And the other? I frowned, though I tried to hide it. When it came to matters of Rangatira and Rangers, I did not know why he should be so interested in my companions. He is Dryleaf, an advisor and one with much expertise in the matter that drew us from home. The matter of wizards, you mean? Said Lord Matara. I do, I said. Forgive me, Rangatira, but why do you ask? By which I only mean that so many questions tell me something is amiss here in Opara. Lord Matara considered me for a moment, deep in thought. When was the last time you were in Telfer lands? Quickly I added the time up in my head. Not the true answer, of course, but the time it would have taken us to get here from Tokana if I first rode into Feldamar and then traveled in haste. What is the date, my lord? The 18th of Yanis. Then it was over a month ago, I said. Lord Matara nodded. That is as I thought. There have been developments that I have only recently been made aware of.
Oh, the accidental sequencing of internet conversations can often be hilarious.
The High King has sent word to the nobility across the land, asking us to be especially alert for strangers passing through our domains. But if you are supposed to know why, it would be proper for you to hear it from your own lord, not from me. That put a tremor in my heart, and despite myself, I could not keep from asking the obvious. And yet, my lord, if you are supposed to be suspicious, why did you allow us to enter your council chamber? Because you came with Victon, he said, and I have verified that this is Victon. I have my own wizards, and though you did not notice them, they probed your party for magic as you entered, to ensure he was no weremage in disguise. A wise measure, said Mag. Lord Matara glanced up at her, looking annoyed for a moment. Forgive her, my lord, I said, glaring over my shoulder at Mag. She has been a family friend for so long that she has grown somewhat lax in decorum, and she is such a skilled warrior that my lord tends to overlook it. To my immense relief, he smiled at that. I suppose there are some in Opara who I treat the same, Victon among them, though that is for his wine and not his skill in battle, though I have heard that that was prodigious in earlier days. Nearly an age ago now, Rangatira, said Victon, giving another bow. Lord Matara smiled before turning back to Mag. If you were so skilled a warrior, I would enjoy sparring with you sometime, if you remain in Opara long. Before Mag could say something else idiotic, I replied, I am afraid that is not our plan. We wish to find and eliminate this rogue weremage and then to return home as quickly as we may. He nodded. Fairly said. Very well. If you have been hunting this weremage for almost a month, there is little chance she has anything to do with the matter the High King warned us about.
That is reassuring, but it also means I cannot spare my personal attention for the matter. I will send for my lead ranger to assist you." He lifted a hand in a clear gesture of dismissal, though a kindly one. I bowed, fist to my head once more, and ushered Victon, Mag, and Dryleaf from the room.
Hey, what's up, Josh? How we doing? Oh, that's awesome, Josh. Yay for outlining. All right, chapter 9, here we come. Ooh, and it's a long one. Oh, no, it's an action one, so it's not going to actually take that long, even though the word count is high. Eh. Eh.
Chapter 9.
sky above, Mag, would you please try to keep at least a modicum of respect? I said, once the page had escorted us back to the waiting chamber, and the door was closed. I was plenty respectful, she said, and I took his measure before I spoke. That was a man who respects bravery and a good laugh. She is right, said Victon with a chuckle. He seemed an honorable man, said Dryleaf. I could hear a strength in him. Strength and wit and many secrets, I said. I knew him when I was young, before I had even seen 14 summers. Before your wending, then, said Mag. No wonder he thought you looked familiar. The years have altered my appearance at least as much as the wending, I said. Not all of us have retained our youth so well as you. She gave me a brittle smile. Dryleaf sighed as he settled back in his chair cushions. It is good for you that you were not recognized, he said. It seems you do not have as much to fear in your homeland as you thought. But I was not entirely convinced. Certainly, here in Opara, it was far less likely that anyone would recognize me than it would have been in Tokana. But all it would take was one member of my family. Tokana. But all it would take was one member of my family, even distant kin, and then I knew word would make its way back home, to my mother. I feared to think what might happen then. Victon spoke up. This is where I should let you go your own way, I think, he said. I know little of these matters. Of course, said Mag, clasping his hand and pulling him into an said Mag, clasping his hand and pulling him into an embrace. Into an embrace. Him into. Pulling him into an embrace. And pulling him into an embrace. Thank you for everything, Victon. We will try to see you again if we can. Will you be all right, getting back to the farm on your own? I told you I can mount my horse, he chuckled. Besides, the Rangatira's servants are always willing to help me. Then thank you again, I said. May the sky smile upon you, and the moons light your way through the dark. I enjoyed our time together more than any I have had in a good long while, said Dryleaf, reaching out to allow Victon to take his wrist. May the time before our next meeting be short, and may the reunion be joyous. With your presence, of course it will be, said Victon. I would give much to have you tell more tales.
Morning, Dad.
Hey, sweetheart. Thank you for...
Mom woke me up for a shower, so that's why I'm a little late.
Little late. That's fine. It's not that late.
Oh. Can I help you edit your video?
No, I'm not making a video. Remember, I stopped doing it every single day.
So what's that?
This is a audiobook.
Oh. Maybe you could teach me that stuff.
I'd love to, actually. That'd be fun. But not this one. Right now I'm doing a thing that I have to do. But when I start working on editing the next one, we'll work on it, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
With your presence, of course it will be, said Victon. I would give...
Hashtag relatable, Larry.
I would give much to have you tell more tales and sing more songs for my family. Nothing would please me more, said Dryleaf, once this business is taken care of. Of course, said Victon. Then he took Dryleaf's shoulder and gently placed his forehead to the old man's. Until next time. He left. We settled ourselves into chairs to await the arrival of the lead ranger. I was interested in that secretive business the Rangatira mentioned, about the news from the High King, Dryleaf said, once the chamber had settled to silence again. It must be the shades, said Mag.
That was my guess, said Dryleaf. Yet Connors thinks our were-mage has nothing to do with them. I wonder just what Enelin told the nobility. I could not help getting somewhat rankled. The least you two could do is refer to Lord Matara and the High King by their proper titles. Mag waved an airy hand. We leave such niceties to you nobles, she said. You just told me I have a poor grasp of decorum. Before I could argue further, a thought struck me like an arrow between the eyes. I grinned, prompting a confused frown from Mag. Mag, I said, struggling through a throat that had suddenly gone tight. If the High King warned the 9 kings of the Shades, that means she received the message. She looked every bit as thunderstruck as I felt. Looked every bit. She looked every bit as thunderstruck as I felt, her hands clenching to fists. From his place in the cushioned chair, Dryleaf turned his head back and forth, arching an eyebrow. Eh? What message? He said. You did not tell me you were on speaking terms with the High King. Not us, I said. Friends of ours, ones who barely escaped the destruction of Northwood. They were trying to deliver news of the Shades to the High King's seat, but they were pursued. We had feared for their safety. I see, said Dryleaf, nodding gravely. Then I am happy for you both that they survived. Mag, we know where they are, I said. We can find them. We can go to the seat and find... Of course we can, said Mag, giving me a small smile, but a stern one. Once the were-mage is dead, we are free to go wherever we wish. We will visit the seat then. I swear it. I felt crestfallen. In my joy over realizing that Lauren had survived and fulfilled her mission, I had almost forgotten about the were-mage, about anything but my sudden desire to mount Foolhoof and ride for the Great Bay as fast as his legs could carry me. But of course, we had come this far, and there was still the were-mage. Naturally, I said, after we have finished here. And speaking of which, Mag continued, if the nobility knows of the Shades, it could become a problem for us. If the Rangatira seeks information about them, but he is trying to keep their existence a secret, then his servants might withhold information from us. It is understandable, of course, but contrary to our aims. But I know how to solve the problem. Before I could ask what she meant, the chamber door opened. In stepped a person whose golden badge marked them as the lead ranger. They were twixt, short and thinly built, with sharp eyes and hair cut only a finger away from the scalp. Their clothes were much finer than mine, but had clearly seen just as many miles and just as much wear. The tunic's sleeves ended just past the elbow, and I saw scars and calluses on the fingers that told me at once this was an archer, and a well-practiced one. Greetings, they said. I am Tuin of the family Matara. I serve the Rangatira. His lead ranger, I said, stepping forth and offering my hand. Greetings, friend. I'm Kanahari of the family Telfer. They took me by the wrist and shook, sizing me up for a moment. They had to look up into my face, for they were a head shorter. Well met indeed. It is a long while since I met a ranger from Tokana. I smiled weakly. And a long while since I met one from Opara. I have met the Lord Telfer, you know. She came to visit some years ago. An honorable woman, though a hard one. This caught me so thoroughly by surprise that I was unable to respond for a long moment. I was terrified of my mother discovering my return, but I had managed to put thoughts of her aside, until Tuin spoke of her so brazenly. A response seemed far out of reach, but I summoned it. She certainly is a hard woman, I said at last, forcing a weak smile. Tuin chuckled. Doubly so to her rangers, I imagine. Still, it seems to get results. When she came, she only brought Maya, her lead ranger, but he was a fine man. Rarely have I met a ranger with such skill. I began to get a sick feeling. I knew no one named Maya. It had been...
I knew no one named Ma. Named
Ooh, ugly. Ugly mouth squeak.
one named Ma. No one named. I knew no one named Maya. It had been many years since I had spoken with my family, of course, but I had thought that my middle sister, Deetra, would have been the lead ranger. Had something happened? But, of course, when we were younger, Deetra had been more like me, nearly as soft as my mother would have put it. I could well imagine that Mother might have decided not to elevate Deetra to the position, especially not after what had happened to Romil, my other eldest sister. Maya is a fine man indeed, I said, feeling as though I had pulled the words from the depths of a bog. If they set you to this task, you must be a capable warrior, said Tuin, and if by any means I can help, I shall, out of respect for them both. Though I felt sick, I nodded and waved to the others. This is Chow, and my elderly friend is Dryleaf. A pleasure, said Dryleaf, holding out his hand for them to take it. The Rangatira's lead ranger. We stand in mighty company. Why, I would guess you have wandered nearly as far as I have. I can only hope, grandfather, said Tuin warmly. Well met. Now, here we have a weremage to hunt. A dangerous prospect at the best of times. You should tell me all that you can. They beckoned us over to the chairs, which we moved to surround a table near the back of the room. Mag and I carefully explained what had drawn us here, though I took the lead in the storytelling, changing the details to match the tale that we had come from Tucana. They listened as I described a road east into Feldamar, which then cut south through the kingdom into Dorsey, and then circled back around to head north into Opara. Tuin frowned. Why would she come back towards Calentin if she fled it in the first place? Because she has friends here, or so we have gathered, I said. Tuin nodded slowly, pursing their lips. If she is lurking near here, there are only a few places she could be, especially if she has company.
That is a very successful action for a lot of people, Eri. Having a dedicated writing time and just not letting yourself do anything else during that time. And that is one thing that works really well for me. Like, I have work time and I'm like, okay, for the next hour or whatever it is, I'm sitting here and I'm working. And if I don't write during that time, if I just like get out like 20 words and the rest of the time I'm staring at a blank screen, that's fine. The point is that you're not allowed to do anything else. Not allowed to get on my phone, play video games or whatever. And as you do that more and more, you eventually train your brain into writing during that time.
We hoped you would be able to point us to some of them, I said. They leaned back in their chair, looking pensively at the table and tapping their chin. After a while they rose and went to a cupboard at the other end of the room. From it they pulled a wide scroll, which they unfurled on the table to reveal a map of Opara and the surrounding area. On the eastern end of it was half of Tahumanga, the fire mountain, with many notes scratched around the area of its foothills. Some had been rubbed away, leaving only a smudged stain behind. Tuin leaned over it. If the weremage is up to no good and is trying to avoid the law, there are many places she could be hiding, said Tuin. Of course, being a weremage, she could be anywhere, even in plain sight. Mag nodded. We think it will be easier to find her by way of the friends we mentioned earlier. Someone in one of the previous towns we passed through heard her talking about coming to Opara to join them. And what sort of friends are they? Said Tuin. Mag shrugged innocently. She is a criminal on the run from the law. I imagine they are other criminals. Then she fixed Tuin with a piercing look. Though, of course, the Rangatira seemed rather suspicious of the whole matter. Tell me, are the two of you worried about the shades? Are the two of you worried about the shades? Worried about the shades? Shades?
Shades? Shades? Are the two of you worried about the shades? She might as well have pulled the ceiling down on us with mind magic, so great was the effect upon Tuin. Dryleaf's brows shot for the sky, and his grip tightened on his walking stick. I tried mightily to keep an expression of calm, but I must admit I wondered for a moment if Mag had quite lost her mind. "How do you—" began Tuin. "When we were following the weremage through Dorsey, the rumor of these shades was thick across the land," said Mag. "We heard they have already attacked a town in Selvin, some place called North Forest or some such." She gave a look of surprise so genuine that I almost believed it. "But you look shocked. Are they meant to be a secret?" Tuin frowned. "They are. Blast. My lord will not be pleased to find out that rumors of the shades have spread to the common folk, though I am happy to hear that it seems to have started in Dorsey and not here in Calenton." Mag cocked her head, her eyes widening slightly in perfectly innocent curiosity. Her eyes widening slightly in widening slightly in perfectly innocent curiosity. "Who are they?" Tuin shook their heads slowly. "The Rangatira has told me that you should hear that news from your... told me that you should hear that you sh- me that you should hear that news from your own lord. But if your weremage has something to do with the shades, then—" "Oh, we are certain she does not," said Mag, shaking her head emphatically. "There was not even a rumor of them in Tokana. We only heard about them in Dorsey, and never related to our search for her, and we heard less and less about them the farther we came north." I understood at last. As long as Tuin thought we knew nothing about the shades, they would not speak of the matter with us, but they would harbor a secret suspicion about our weremage, and might even withhold information. But by assuring Tuin that yes, we did know of the shades, but that we were certain our weremage was in no way related to them, Mag hoped to put Tuin's mind to rest on the matter. It made sense, though it still seemed a wild risk, and I wished we had had time to discuss it first. Tuin was silent a long time. Their brow furrowed, and they looked between Mag and I. "What did this weremage do, exactly? Why did Lord Telfer command you to hunt her in the first place?" "She killed someone," I said quietly. "Someone dear to us and dear to Lord Telfer. It was a spiteful, personal fight that spun out of control." Mag's expression turned grim. Tuin sighed. "I'm sorry to hear it," they said. "Very well. If the weremage has friends hiding her from the law, and they are not lurking here in the city, that should narrow it down. She is likely somewhere in the foothills of the mountain." "We came from there just this morning," said Mag. Tuin nodded. "So I heard. There are many folds in the land in that area. Opara is an always-changing place. People move here and people move away. Abandoned homesteads are common near the edge of the wilderness. So, too, are neglected strongholds even farther away. Some are built by bandits and thieves and left empty when we drive them off. But then there are abandoned fortresses, relics of ancient kings, some stretching back to the time before time. They often have an evil air, and criminals usually avoid them, but not always." They thrust their finger at the map. "We should begin with the stronghold of Manwa. The last time it was occupied was 3 years ago. After we drove bandits out of the place then, the Rangatira kept a watch on it. but that watch was relaxed a year ago, and now it is visited but rarely. An evil stronghold in the mountains. I did not much like the sound of that. But Mag had focused on something else Tuin had said. You said we should search the stronghold? Kanahari and I had planned to go on our own. Tuin grinned up at her. Did you? Well, I am the Rangatira's servant, and it is my duty. He assigned me to help you. I gave them an easy smile. We are grateful, of course. It seems your plans are set, said Dryleaf, who had settled back in his chair. Though I am afraid I will not be much help in such a venture. Tuin nodded and knocked their knuckles once on the table. It is settled, then. The day has worn on too long for us to go now. I will arrange for you to be quartered here in the keep tonight, and we will set out first thing in the morning. You are too kind, said Mag, but we have lodgings in the city. I would rather not have to seek you out, said Tuin lightly. And besides, you are servants of Rangatira. It is only right that we should house you while you visit our domain, as well as spare your coin. But they had a careful look in their eye, and I wondered if they wanted to ensure we did not try to investigate the fortress on our own. Then I suppose the matter is settled, I said just as amiably. We thank you for your help. Of course, said Tuin. Let us get you to your rooms. Our servants will rouse you before dawn, and then we shall all see what may be done about your weremage. We set about retrieving our things from the ugly squirrel, and Oku was allowed within the keep walls to bed with the other hounds they kept. But as we set about readying ourselves for another night's rest, I found myself wondering whether Tuin's presence by our side would be a help, or if they might inadvertently keep us from the end of our long hunt.
Chapter 9 is done. Woo!
Chapter 10. It takes a special sort of person to be a ranger like Tuin. One must be a fighter as well as a tracker, and able to survive alone in the wilderness for weeks on end. I never wanted to be one. Not because I lacked the skill. I was better in the wilderness than most, and a good archer, as well as a passable swordsman.
but I did not want to fight for my mother, to be another soldier serving at her command. As a consequence, my mother thought I was rather useless, and that was the only quality she could not forgive in a person. She doted, as much as she ever doted, upon my eldest sister, Romil, and she tolerated my middle sister, Dietra, because Dietra at least tried to play the part our mother demanded. When I was young, it was hard for me to tell how much of Dietra's demeanor was an act and how much was genuine. She could adopt a hard-bitten, stern manner when she wished to please our mother. When she was following orders, she would grow stone-hearted, cold, even ruthless. But I knew another side of her. She was kind to me and to others when not under my mother's eye. She was assigned several retainers close to her own age as she grew older, and she grew to love many of them, or at least to bed most of them. I was not supposed to find out, but I did, though Dietra swore me to secrecy. It happened when I was 15, and Dietra would have been, she would have been about 19? I had woken after a nightmare. I had such dreams often in my youth, though never after my wending, which tells you something. In any case, when I woke up frightened in the night, I would creep down the hall to Dietra's room. Never to my mother's, certainly never to Romil's. And so there I found myself, creeping along the hallway in the thin moon's light pouring through the windows, when suddenly the door to Dietra's room opened. Out came her retainer, cloaked in shadow and little else. I could scarcely see her in the darkness, but she saw me and she fled at once as if in terror. I stood staring after her, and only after a moment did I realize that Dietra now stood in the doorway. She was clothed in a thin robe, one hand on the door's edge, red upon her cheeks and a scowl upon her face.
"Do not say a word," she whispered in the dark. "Not one. If Mother finds out, she will put me in the stocks." "Mother would never do that," I protested, but Dietra gave me a long look, and I wilted under it. Well, obviously I would never say anything in the first place." "Good girl," she said, because none of us knew any better in those days, least of all me. "A bad dream?" I nodded, though I had almost forgotten why I was there. The nightmare was fading. "A small one. Do not trouble yourself over it." "Oh, come in," she said, opening the door wider. "But sky above, please pay attention in the future, will you? And if you should come to my room and the door is closed, knock before you open it." "I will," I promised her. "Very well," she said. "Tell me what you dreamed." I entered her room, which smelled sweet, and told her all about the dream, which I do not remember now. And at last I fell asleep in her arms and felt just a little safer than I had before. That is what a ranger should be. It is why I always thought Dietra would be an excellent ranger if she had not had to serve my mother. But it is why I never thought I would be a good one, because Dietra could always make me feel safe. But that was not a gift I felt I could give to anyone else. A ranger's first duty is always to keep their people safe, or at least to try, even when faced with threats against which they are powerless. On the same night that Mag and I conferred with Tuin, there was trouble in my homeland of Tokana. In a small village north of my family's stronghold in Kahonga, a woman named Wetu and her husband Peora had just put their children to bed for the night. They were sharing a cup of wine before they too went to sleep. They rested in wicker chairs. They rested in wicker chairs in front of their home, watching the stars make their slow turn through the sky. Wetu had been a ranger long ago. She was the one who heard the sound long ago.
long ago. Ranger long ago. She was the one who heard the sounds first. A heavy stomping. First, a heavy stomping, along with a deep, guttural snuffling. She shot to her feet. "Peora," she whispered. Peora rose, though most slowly. "What is it?" "Something is coming. I think—" A loud, heavy crash shattered the stillness of the night. Towards the northern end of the village, someone screamed. Wetu turned. "The girls!" They ran inside the house to the back room. Their daughters were sitting up in bed, listening in terror as more screams rang out in the darkness. Together, Wetu and Peora scooped them up, running for the front door. The wall to their left shattered inwards. A piece of wood whizzed through the air to jam straight into Wetu's thigh. She managed to bite down on her scream, turning it into a grunt instead, but her daughter fell from her arms onto the floor. "Wetu!" cried Peora. "I am fine," wheezed Wetu. "Get the—" Her eldest daughter screamed, pointing at the new hole in the wall. A massive face was looking through it. The skin looked stony, with small formations of crystals looking as though they had erupted through the skin, and moss clinging to the cracks. 2 tusks were visible in the bottom jaw, and 2 in the top. Were visible in the bottom jaw, and 2 in the jaw, and jaw. Jaw, and 2 in the top. Huge ears like miniature sails swept back from either side of the head, twisting every which way. Small, beady eyes glinted with the light of a nearby fire. The troll opened its mouth and roared. "Run!" screamed Wetu, forcing herself to her feet. She seized her daughter's hand and pulled her along, half dragging her out the door and into the night, forcing herself to keep up with her husband despite the pain in her leg. Together the family fled south, beyond the bounds of the village and up a rise. Most of the other villagers had gathered there. Wetu and Peora stopped in their midst, clinging to their daughters as they turned to look back at their home. Trolls were ripping the village apart. There were at least a dozen that Wetu could see. Wooden timbers cracked in their grip as they ripped roofs and walls off of houses, as though they were peeling away the skin of great beasts to reveal and eat the insides. There were only a few stone buildings, but even those could not stand before the monsters. The trolls simply smashed their fists into the stone, and after a few blows it crumbled before them. A fire had caught in one of the buildings. A fire had caught in...
What the fuck?
For the monsters. The trolls simply smashed their fists into the stone, and after a few blows it crumbled before them. A fire had caught in one of the buildings. A fire had caught in one of the buildings.
Huh.
Fire had caught in one of... A fire caught in one... A fire caught in one of the buildings.
Let's see if I can punch in this recording and still have it sound not awful. Check, 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 check. Check. A fire had caught in one of the buildings. A fire. It was a fire! Why the fuck won't you record? Ah, yes. I remember now. Check. A fire had caught in one of the buildings, and tongues of orange licked up into the night. Okay.
crumbled before them. A fire had caught in one of the buildings, and tongues of orange licked up in night.
Oops. So this track is just a little louder than the rest. Hello.
Into the stone, and after a few blows it crumbled.
Witchcraft.
And after a few blows it crumbled before them. A fire had caught in one of the buildings, and tongues of orange licked up into the night. The trolls gave that building a wide berth.
That works. That works. Yay for punch-in recording!
"Why did they attack us?" said one of the villagers. Wetu's expression was grim. The village had been her home ever since she had retired from the Rangatira's service. 10 years she had lived here, and they had been the happiest years of her life. Watching the trolls rip it up. Watching the trolls, watching the troll, the troll, the troll.
There you are, fucker.
Watching the troll. Watching the troll. Years of her life. Watching the trolls rip it apart was like watching them tear her life into pieces and scatter them to the winds. "Who knows?" she said. "It does not matter now. We must make for Kahanga." "She is right," cried Peora, turning to the others. "We will be safe there. The Rangatira can protect us." Wetu held her tongue as she pushed through the crowd, leading them off south in the darkness. She wanted to say that Peora's hope was misplaced. They needed to reach the city because they needed food and shelter. But if the trolls attacked Kahonga, Lord Telfer would not be able to keep them safe. No one would. Wetu wanted to say it, but she did not. She was no longer a ranger, but she had been. And a ranger was supposed to make her people feel safe. No matter what.
Okay, and that is a done chapter 10.
Hey, Daddy, you're allowed to know my secret identity, but I can't unbutton these to get onto jeans.
Oh, okay. Here. Hold on a second. I'm streaming, so let's... Ugh. There you go. Done chapter 10. Alright, so the next chapter is a long one, and I have to do lunchtime with the kids, so I'm actually going to end off stream at this point and come back later. Oops. Oh, thank you, Wordwin. I really, really love Peldon. Oof. We did not make good time on that chapter. Having to re-record and figure out how to re-record. Yeah, that cut our speed in half. Oof. Oof, oof, oof. I need to step up. I need to step up. Anyway. Cool. So I'm going to be ending off the stream. We're going to toss a raid to somebody. Let's go see who's streaming. This is an Underrealm shirt. Yes, indeed. It is the question everybody should be asking themselves. What would Jordell do? And many characters in Underrealm do ask themselves that question. Sometimes quite often. Oh, we're going to toss a raid to Fairy Wings, who is playing what? Mute. Playing Animal Crossing. Yay. All right. Go say hi to Fairy Wings for me. Make sure I get the name spelled right. There we go. Going to toss the raid to them in a few seconds. Congratulations again to Mezzo9 for winning today's giveaway. Next 50 followers, we do another one. So if you have writer or fantasy friends, can you paint over Jordell in red and scrawl Auntie under it? Wouldn't recommend it, but you can do whatever you want. It's your shirt. Yeah, go say hi to Fairy Wings. Enjoy some nice, peaceful Animal Crossings in this chaotic time. Fairy Wings is also just an awesome person in general. But yeah, catch you on another stream later today. And that's it for me for now. Bye.